November 4th meeting of the City of Monona Finance and Personnel Committee. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder DePula.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the November 20th meeting?
So moved. Second.
Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. There are no appearances that I know of. You haven't heard of any, have you, Neil? There is no unfinished business. Moving on to new business, item 6A, consideration and possible action on Renew Monona Loan Program requests for Alfonso Valdez Robledo and Beth M. Crook de Valdez, 5209 McKenna Road.
And Mr. Plowman is available on Zoom.
Oh, yes, okay. Is there a motion to approve this?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Plowman.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So as mentioned, this is a Renew Monona loan request for the property of 5209 McKenna Road. This is part of the major home rehab category, and the loan request is for $75,000. This would put on an addition to the rear of the property, approximately 23.5 by 20 feet, additional living space for a growing family. This came through the city's CDA last week, and was received unanimous approval from the CDA, and is before the Finance and Personnel Committee this evening. The information was included in the meeting packet. We're also joined by one of the applicants here as well on Zoom for any questions. Thanks.
Anyone have any questions?
Nope. So,
Doug?
like Doug said, CDA approved it. We are going to be talking about some of the policies for the program at the January meeting.
Yeah, we may be changing things a bit, but this one met all of the parameters.
Yep.
And we had funding available, so. So if there aren't any other questions, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to next item, consideration of Resolution 23-12-2655, amending the 2023 capital budget to complete emergency repairs and replacement of mechanics hoist. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. Seeking the committee's approval tonight to proceed with making emergency repairs to the concrete of the mechanics hoist at the shop. I'm asking City Council tonight to approve it in one reading contingent upon Wednesday evening's Public Works Committee approval as well. The state inspector inspected our hoist a few weeks ago and deemed it unsafe, and he took it out of commission. There are some pictures I included in the packet to show you why. You can see the cracks in the floor, and then you can see the cracks going underneath the bolt pattern, and that's basically what secures the hoist to the concrete. So I'm seeking a capital budget amendment for $29,500. $27,500 will go towards the hoist and about $2,000 for the concrete. I included a proposal in the packet tonight. It does have sales tax on, which we won't be paying, so the total will be minus that. The hoist was originally planned for replacement in 2025. Given that we have to replace the concrete, I'm seeking approval to replace the hoist now instead of later, because we'd have to replace the concrete again at that time. So that's pretty much it in summary.
For funding, it would be it's 4 different utilities. 3 utilities use it, and so does the general. So we had some savings from the bridge wall repair, and the other ones were taken basically out of the utilities reserves, which will be able to cover it.
Okay. Any questions?
Does that, the current hoist have any resale or salvage value?
We would send it to auction once we replace it. Right now, we've been finding with the vehicles that we've been purchasing probably the past 10, 15 years, they're wider than what the vehicles were back when this hoist was originally installed. And we are actually lifting bigger vehicles on the hoist, and they have a hard time opening doors because the arms are so close.
Right.
So the next hoist would be a wider hoist that we can open the doors while it's on the hoist.
So it should be safer.
And it will be safer, correct.
Yeah.
And just to, I don't think a lot of people know that you don't just use this to repair public works vehicles, it's also
Right, we.
other vehicles as
We-
right.
We
as
put
well, right?
the police squads on it, the smaller fire vehicles as well. Ron will do the basic maintenance, anything that's warranty related or bigger items. Fire will send their vehicles back to the manufacturer for service. But as far as the police squads and stuff, yeah, we do that at the shop.
But Dan, just so people know, we have one mechanic who basically does like 90%, right?
That's
of
correct.
all the work that we do on our fleet in Monona.
We have one mechanic. Yep.
And this lift is important because it enables him to do that. So-
Daily,
Yep.
correct. Yep.
Doug, I'm sorry, did you have another question?
No.
Any other questions? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dan.
Yep, thanks, Dan.
Next item, consideration of Resolution 23-11-2658, amending the 2024 operating budget to allocate American Rescue Plan funds for employee retention payments. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Leah, were you going to address this, or, I'm not sure, or Mark, I'm not sure who?
We can do it together.
Just as a preliminary, as you probably noticed, we have both of our union contracts also on this agenda, so.
Thank you, Mayor. As we have discussed previously, this, in terms of the post-COVID workforce, we're seeing a lot of changes in our ability as a city to recruit qualified applicants for open positions. And we're seeing a turnover rate about 3 times our average turnover in 2023. So we are recommending the use of American Rescue Plan funds in order to provide a $2,500 retention bonus for all full-time and permanent part-time employees to be made in 2 payments in 2024. And these funds have also been, or this proposal has also been approved in the union contracts that are on the agenda for tonight as well.
Any questions?
So I know we had talked about whether to provide this payment to part-time, non-permanent people. We're not going to pursue that at this point. So,
Staff is not recommending that we pursue that.
yeah.
Anyone else?
Nope.
Neil, did you want to say something?
I just think, obviously, I think for those employees, Alder, there are maybe other opportunities we'd be looking at. Obviously, this kind of almost encourages the part-timers maybe to consider more full-time type
Right.
positions.
Yeah.
But we think there may be other avenues, working with the department heads, to identify some ways to maybe include volunteers, more lower-level part-time staff to actually do some retention with them as well. We still think that's a good idea to look into. We're just not recommending this funding source at this time.
And Parks did have some kind of retention bonus for pool.
Yep, the last
Employees,
several years,
right?
Employees at the outdoor pool have been given a retention bonus if they work through the end of the season. We've also seen hourly rates for our seasonal and some of our hourly employees, I think, increase at a rate that's higher than full-time or part-time employees have been seeing just because of the marketplace and what's needed to attract them.
It's just a big variety of how things are handled depending on the department and
Correct.
that kind of thing. Any other questions?
I had one last comment, that as an old union member myself, I would point out that this amount probably would have been $2,000 if not for the collective bargaining efforts of the police and fire unions.
That's true.
Even though, it doesn't make economic sense really for other employees to be in a union, it does. They still are getting some benefit from that, so.
Actually, this was actually proposed by the unions
Yeah,
That's true.
right.
completely, so.
If there aren't any other questions, I guess the clerk should probably do a roll call on this.
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item D, consideration of Resolution 23-12-2656, approving the terms of a one-year collective bargaining agreement with Wisconsin Professional Police Association Law Enforcement Employee Relations Division. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Leah?
Thank you. This is a tentative bargaining agreement with the Wisconsin Professional Police Association. Their union has ratified this tentative agreement, so we would be looking for approval of the contract language with these changes in it from this body tonight. I'll just briefly summarize. We have done a little bit of contract cleanup language regarding lateral transfers. We have given the chief an additional discretion to hire new police officers that come in qualified, well qualified, to start at the 48-month step, which is the highest pay step, to encourage officers, experienced officers from other departments to lateral transfer to Monona. Some contract language on just the number of arbitrators required in an arbitration. Some clarification that the officer's 18-month probation begins at the start of field training. Clarification language regarding an officer's intent to retire and how much notice they give to us. An increase in the shift differential rate for officer in charge from 50 cents an hour to $1 an hour. That's supported by Chief Cheney. 3% wage increase for 2024, and the $2,500 retention bonus to be given in 2 payments, one in January and one in July. And then this would be a one-year contract expiring December 31st of 2024.
Any questions for Leah? Or the chief is here as well. I have one question that I don't know how important this is, but I was just looking, when I was looking through this today, I was looking at the minimum uniform requirement, addendum A on page 66. Caps, A, Air Force style dress cap, or B, baseball cap. Nowhere does it say anything about our new Western look.
That's probably language we need to clarify, that we need to clean up, I guess.
So maybe next time, or
Can we slip in the word fez?
Mayor, I have not required the cavalry hat, so
Oh,
the
okay.
baseball hat is just fine.
Okay, good to know.
Thank you for the thought.
Anyone have anything else? All right, do we need a roll call for this?
I would probably suggest
You
one.
think?
Yeah.
Please call the roll.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Item E, consideration of Resolution 23-12-2657, approving the terms of a one-year collective bargaining agreement with International Association of Firefighters Local 311. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Leah?
Thank you. This again is an agreement that has been ratified by the union members. Very similar to the police agreement, one-year contract, 3% wage increase for 2024, plus the $2,500 retention bonus. Also, 2 times their regular hourly wage for any overtime hours worked on a holiday, so not regular hours, just overtime hours. And then an increase in the annual clothing allowance from $500 to $600 per member.
Any questions for Leah? In that holiday 2-time rate, the police have something similar, is
They
that
do,
right?
yes.
Already, okay. I guess if there aren't any other questions, Aline, would you please call the roll?
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Alder Roll.
Aye.
Alder Wood. Sorry.
Motion passes. Let's see, item F, consideration of Resolution 23-12-2660, authorization to contract with Accurate Appraisal for assessment services. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mark, you going to address this one?
Yeah, I'll try to walk through this. I think
And we do
everybody-
have a revised version of the
There's a revised
resolution. is that
version of
right?
this. So basically, our contract was up with Acker Appraisal. We went out for RFP. We actually only received one bid back. It was the same provider we've had for at least, I think, almost 18 years, Acker Appraisal. So we met with them just recently last week to kind of go over their contract and kind of figure out what their service costs are on page 99. So what we decided internally as a staff is, so currently what we have, just to back up a little bit, we do a full market annual market update every year, which basically what it is the assessors, they'll look at, if somebody pulls a permit, they'll look at that, they'll actually go out and visit those. But they'll also, the other ones, you don't have a permit pulled or any type of new construction, they will update your assessment based on the market value, so based on sales and some other stuff that they would have. And that also kind of, they want to keep it consistent with what the equalized value is, which is done by the state. There's a formula with the state that I'm not sure exactly how it works. So there's really three options that way of doing assessments. There's what they call a maintenance. If you look on page 99, they call this a maintenance, the first annual maintenance. We did not recommend this. So basically, what maintenance is, they don't change any assessments ever unless you have a sale of that house, and we bought the house, or you pulled a permit. So, if your assessment is $200,000, it says $200,000 until next time you do a market value adjustment or a walkthrough. So a lot of communities, some communities do that, so some people never have their assessments changed in 6, 7, 8 years, and they'll do a reval, and a lot of them almost double just based on that. So they've been doing this full market value since I've been here, about 18 years. So the reason why we haven't done it in the past, I think it's kind of the equity. So if you're new, you're paying a lot more of the taxes. If you buy a house, you're going to pay a lot more taxes. Somebody's been here 3, 4 years because their assessments are not changing. You're paying a higher value. You're a disproportionate share of the value. So the city of always has not chosen that one in the past, just for, I guess, for equity reasons. They do have a 4-year blend, which is, if you look at the 4-year blend with the annual cost. So the annual cost is just updating the assessments. The 4-year blend says in 2024, 25, they'll do a maintenance, and then do a market update in 26, then back to a maintenance. And then they have an inspection costs. What the inspection cost, really what that is a walkthrough. So that'd be a quarter of the city every year, and that's an option. If you wanted that option, when you look at option 2, there's 2 options. Really, it's 2 things you can pick. You can pick the annual cost, or you can pick them combined. So that if you do combine, it's $86,000. If you just do the annual cost, it's $34,000. Regardless, for any of them, the walkthroughs are all $52,500. So we looked at that one. We said with the maintenance, we said, well, let's kind of go with what we've been doing, and that's the annual market update. So basically, that's the same method we're using right now. Been doing that for years. So we kept that. We recommended that same option. So what that is, when you look at option 3, option 3, which is the 4-year annual market update. So there's a $52,500 per year for $210,000 is what your annual cost. That's what we're recommending. And then the walkthroughs. So we did talk a little bit about this, and I was wrong in our meeting. We met with them. I thought we haven't done it 2 contracts ago, but it's been. So the last contract we just did the annual cost, and the year before that we did have walkthroughs. We did walk through a quarter of the city. So it seems like every other year, when I look back in past history, it's been like that. It's like they say every other year we'll switch. So
It's really every other contract.
Every other contract.
Every other 4-year.
yeah, every other 4-year
right?
contract. When we sat down and talked about this, 2024, we just don't have the budget amount to do the walkthrough. But we do think a walkthrough is necessary. The further you wait to do it, the further we could be missing stuff for people's assessment. So basically, if you pull the permit, they have the information. It's really catching the people who never pulled a permit. There's some wrong information on there. So if you if you didn't pull a permit and you did add stuff to your house, it's not caught in the assessment. So that's what walkthroughs really they do. They make sure the current data is correct and catches people who have never pulled permits to make sure they're paying their fair share of the taxes. So what we did think would recommend is 2024, do the annual cost updates. That's the $52,500. And look into doing the walkthroughs for 25, 26, 27, but contingent on if that's passed in a referendum, if that's the will of the council, to maybe look at doing a walkthrough. And what we would do is, working with Accurate Appraisal, we could either do 1/3 of the city. The total cost overall to do walkthrough is $210,000 regardless. They said there's different options. If you do that, we can do it 1/3. We can add to 2028 and do it over 4 years if we wanted to do that, 25 to 28. So we decided what we do again is to do 2024, regardless, do the option number 3, annual cost for the 4 years, the $210,000, and then do walkthroughs beginning in 2025, contingent on if we put it in the referendum for $210,000, starting in 2025. If you don't want to put it in the referendum, I would still recommend just doing the annual cost of $210,000 and do a walkthroughs and start in 2028.
Questions, anyone?
So the last time we did walkthroughs, that contract was, I think you said 2016 to 2019.
Yes.
So if we follow past practice, wouldn't we do
We should be doing that.
the full thing, the option 3?
Yes, but I don't think we have the funds that we'd have. I mean, the 52,000, if we want to do the walkthrough this year, would have to come out of fund balance for 1 year until we can put it in. If we
Right.
wanted it to start in 2024.
So, but you're recommending that the contract include include that annual cost for the future years, the additional annual cost?
Yes, and we did talk to them. They said we can, if we want to write a contract contingent on if it's, if we want to put in a referendum, or otherwise, there's no way we could really afford it.
Okay.
If the referendum would fail, we'd have to cut some type of service to get to the 52,000 or
So-
use fund balance.
Okay, and just that, all you're asking tonight is, well, is this actually authorizing the contract? Yeah, it is. I guess I have a question. That the resolution says 52.5 annually for 4 years, but what you're talking about, wouldn't it be that in the first year, but not?
Well, regardless, we'd still do if you look at option 3, there's the 4 years of annual cost. Each year is $52,500.
Right.
That's what we recommend for the next 4 years. That one, regardless, if we want to do the walkthroughs. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, but then if we wanted to add those over, so I guess what my issue is, I don't think the resolution really says. I'm sorry.
We were trying to
Oh,
write
you're
this
right. Yeah, I'm
resolution.
sorry.
I know it's,
I'm sorry. It's all there. Helps to read the whole thing.
No?
And I think our intention is just, this is to direct staff to proceed with the contract. That
Yeah.
contract would still need to come back.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions?
no.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Let's see, next item, the financial report.
Yeah.
So, Mark.
Yep. I forgot my glasses, so I have to. So this year's, I know Doug, you had a question about where we at with the general fund. I noticed I didn't put any numbers in for the interest income projection. I do after I add the, I'll have the financials for the next meeting too through November, just so you can see that. I think basically we'll have a break-even budget for the general fund once it's all said and done. But
Okay.
it is, there is a lot of issues. I mean, a lot of things going on here. If you page 109, I just want to get into some stuff. I'll just go down the line here. License and permits, you know, we're still waiting on 2 larger permits, but we're still, like you said, we're 50-some thousand dollars over through October over what we budgeted for. Excavation permits are basically right-of-way permits that's done by the Public Works Department are up this year. That was adjusted in the 2024 budget, but that's helped us. We also haven't had the BESA permit or the Bloom. The demo permits are coming. I probably think in the end of the year, we'll probably have the BESA and Bloom, they'll probably pull their permits actually in by January next year. I think it's gonna be tight to have their actual permit. The demos will be pulled, but the actual building permits will probably be pulled next year, unfortunately. Fines and, police fines and court penalties, I forgot to make a note on this. We will actually, should be at probably 170 at the end of the year, or 160, so we'll be at 10 to 20,000 over on that one. That was adjusted
That would be
in the
nice.
2024 budget. Public charges for services, on this next page, 110, just kind of want to hit this. So fire protection fees. So this is basically if there's a accident on the belt line, we've been getting larger fees for that. And talking to Jerry, I think they're like 30 permits behind paying us. So we should, at the very end of the year, hopefully they'll get up at the end of the year, we should make up that $16,000 difference. So that one should be okay at the end of the year, based on working with Jerry on that. Building launch fees collection, that's our boat launch. That's been way down, and I think we kind of talked about that during the operating budget. We actually adjusted it down. We're projected only get 7,000. It's just, we're having to find a hard way to collect those permits. I did forget to hit interest income, and I don't have all recorded. But that number will be closer to about 250 to 300,000. We'll get it all updated in there. Miscellaneous revenues, the PFAS, that's the firefighter chemical that gets into the water. We did get a settlement from that, about 22,000. So that's a bonus there.
So which settlement is that? Because there's 2 at least.
Yeah, I have to take a look.
And the IBM, or the IBM, DuPont, and
Monsanto, maybe?
So I don't
No,
know, it's
it's
a class
not
action, one of the class action lawsuit that came from Bill Cole. I had to see which one he did it from. Yeah, there was 22,000. So I'll figure out.
Because I
which
thought
one.
they didn't know how much was going to be available because they had a set amount for the settlement. But
Yeah, I mean, I can get the paperwork on it and see what we have on it. I know it was an actual check that we got from the state, I believe, so.
okay, maybe they went ahead and distributed.
Yeah, I can see what
Yeah.
we have for paperwork on that.
Okay.
Kind of go to the expenses. There's some accounting stuff I still need. Legal is probably one of the bigger ones, 111. It's projected to be, about 40,000 over budget, and non-retainer is already 20,000 over budget. Non-retainer was all the police lawsuits. They all been settled, so there hasn't been any charges there. Just the regular legal, which is Bill Cole. I think this year and last year, there's more lawsuits than I've seen in recent history. And also just bills, helping with the short-term rental ordinance, some other different ordinances this year that we had. So that's been included. That cost adds up. Kind of down, kind of hit a couple. The fire department, I kind of want to hit on that, page 115. So we are projecting about $60,000 over budget by the end of the year. A couple things that, and this kind of relates to the EMS. 2, overtime will be way up this year.
And why is that, Mark?
I think a lot of it is one, I think with the EMS and that, it's kind of the 2 ambulance system and the staffing needs, so, and plus the overtime is up too. I think the 48 is an issue too, the 48-hour switch. So that's been, and we actually had loss of staff too. So there's a combination of 3 or 4 things going on there.
So you think we've been paying overtime to staff 2 ambulances as part of it?
I don't know if it's all because of the second,
But maybe part
but I
of
think
it.
a lot of it, you know, the lack of staff when we get to the 48 makes a difference. And if you're gonna run second ambulance, there's issues there. There also, the biggest issue too is, as far as the over budget, is the equipment. I don't know if you noticed this year, if you go down to the equipment line item, we're at 46,000. We have another bill, we're at 60,000. There's a November bill that, you know, I'm aware of. So basically expenditures is already at 60,000. There's been a lot of accidents this year. I don't know if that's a lot of maintenance. I'm not for sure, trying to figure out exactly why that number is, because last year, again, we were 60,000 too. So in 2 years, we had $120,000 worth of fire equipment and maintenance repairs. So that's a lot. It's not just one vehicle. So
Could you get us a list of those for
Of
the
all
2
the-
years?
how we spent, yeah. I can
It
get
would be
that.
good to,
So there's, and I'm not for sure, and hopefully we haven't missed something, there was an accident we didn't get reimbursed for, so things like that. But, you know, 120,000 in 2 years is a big number.
yeah.
So I don't know if it's the newer people, or if just the vehicles are breaking down. I've known we had at least 4 or 5 just backing into buildings, backing into public works fence, hit a block. So I think there's been little things here and there, so I don't know if that's jarring other stuff throughout the trucks, but it's adding up. And some is just regular routine maintenance, but I don't know exactly what it's all from. But 120,000 is a big number, and I know we just had a couple minor brushes too with the fire truck and the EMS. I don't know if that's even in these numbers, so.
And this is all not regular maintenance?
Not all of it's regular
Yeah,
maintenance. I assume there's definitely some accidents and there's definitely some stuff that's fallen apart, but I'm not, Jerry, maybe get a report from him detailing that. But it's broken, it's not just one vehicle, it's broken down between at least, I know for the fire this year alone, engine 4, engine 2, and ladder 3 basically is broken out almost evenly between the 3 vehicles.
Are the part-time wages, is that the LTE line?
For fire, that is not. That is just your Dan Eckloff and
Oh, okay,
I forget Robert Miller.
okay.
So, got a couple things too in here. There's some savings and base. A lot of them I just put okay. There's the shop just kind of is up 25,000. Streets is over a little bit is this year. Forest is over by 25,000. I mean, your savings 25,000. So the net, you're basically right at 25,000. We did have a big engine blowout on the street. One of the big snow plows. So that was an expensive repair there. I know the numbers look kind of high right now, and how do you get to that number? Some of these numbers I got to reallocate with the utilities. It's an entry I do within a year, so that number will be lower. But the plow truck, I think, was a bigger repair. That's one of those things that happens not very often. You don't usually see much of that. I'm gonna jump around here to get through the parking. If you go to Park and Rec on. Does anybody else have any questions up until I get to Park and Rec? On page 120.
The fire was my main questions, I guess.
I had a question related to the revenue side of that, of the fire, but
Do you want to ask that?
yeah, I guess with running the second ambulance, apparently at least part of the time, are we bringing in more revenue? Enough to, to cover the additional cost?
Yeah, so if you go to, I forgot to put it in here. But so I get all the billings from our EMS medical billing. They bill out all their runs, and they tell me. So I have a report from them that shows how much was billed. all last year and then what we have this year. If you average it out, we were at, through October, we were exactly on the same pace we were last year. And we were actually, had billed the same amount through October. We are getting more revenue for that. I mean, there's revenue coming in, but there's also the expense. You know, like if you go to page, I think it's 131, I believe. I think it's on your thing. You know, their equipment's up, you know, equipment repairs is $14,000 over in that because, you know, the second ambulance needs more repair because it's older, so it needs that. You know, the EMS supplies are up too. I know as of November, we're over the budget, so yes, the revenue's up a little bit, but the expenses are going up too with it. So it's, you know, the part-time wages there, that's where the number you were talking about, Mary. We'll be at 100%. There, you have a lot of overtime needed to run it, so a lot of wages, part-times to run it. So expenses are up, and definitely something we could. The runs are not up. I mean, the bills are not up, and we're billing exactly the same as we were last year, so there's no differences with that.
So are the LTE hours in part being used to staff the extra ambulance?
I can't guarantee if that's what it's for. I mean, I'd have to get.
I mean, I assume it's not the whole thing.
But this LTs is, I mean, Jerry does run the LTs for the second ambulance.
And then Jerry's on the ambulance pretty often too, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So basically, you have to have two people running the ambulance. Usually the way that it works is two people have to run an ambulance based on the type of service we have. So to run that, you would need a second LTE to run that, because then technically you're supposed to have one of the third full-time employees should be on the fire truck at the same time. So
it sounds like we should evaluate whether this is tenable.
yeah, I think it's not adding much revenue to offset the expenses in reality with that. So.
And I guess one other thing, this dues and subscriptions, is that 17.5 and we're already at 23,000 spent for that?
Yeah, I gotta look at
That seems like something that should be pretty easy to keep under control.
There's a subscriptions, I gotta figure, I think that's their softwares he throws in there, so I can break that out.
Okay. I know it's not, it's 6,000,
Yeah.
but it's still, you know.
I mean, their revenue fees we're on target what we budgeted for, so we're not bringing extra revenues if you, so we're basically where we're supposed to be, so we're right on line, so we're not bringing extra revenue in as far as that, I mean, we're budgeting what we thought we'd get.
Okay. Anything else
No,
for the finance report? Any other questions for Mark about that?
no, and I'll bring one for this next month.
Yeah, but could I request
Sure.
like a breakout of the dues and subscriptions to see
Yeah.
what those actually are, and also maybe do an evaluation on this second ambulance and overtime?
Sure.
Okay.
Should we look at the bills? We have a couple, about 5 minutes, is that?
Oh, so my computer doesn't have the bills on it.
Ooh,
How's your memory?
yeah.
Yeah.
Does
Do
it have it on
you remember them all?
No.
Well, we can look at them next
Those
the,
time.
have it on
Yeah.
the agenda?
Yeah.
Here.
You gonna look at Aline's or,
I'm just waiting, 'cause it's been 2
okay,
minutes
we'll
left.
just wait for next time.
Okay.
Okay, well then if there isn't anything else, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned, thank you.
I think it's